I'm Coach Seb, and this is Running New Mexico. All right, joining me today, I have Roman Gurule. He is a runner, graduate of Pojoaque, New Mexico State. He runs the NewMexico.run website, which if you haven't checked out, it'll be in the show notes. Definitely check it out. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Seb.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first question is, how did you get into running?
So I got into running back in high school. I wasn't very good at sports, but running was something that I could do. So I tried out for the cross country team, and Coach Lockridge from Pojoaque let me on there. And then he's currently Senator Ben Ray Lujan. He kind of was a team captain, and he took me under his wing, and gave me a lot of pointers, and he was like, do this or do that. And so that's how I started developing. And then I tried out for track, kind of liked that. So I kept on with those things throughout high school.
That's fantastic. I did not realize that Ben Ray Lujan ran for Pojoaque, to be
He
honest.
did. He did. In fact, to this day, his record on one of the trails still stands. Coach Lockridge had said, whoever can run up this trail first gets their name named after it. And it's still called Ben's Trail.
That is fantastic. What was it like running for Coach Lockridge? Because, I grew up in northern New Mexico, and those Pojoaque teams were always good. He was always great at developing runners and just having a team that was ready to go.
Well, first of all, he's just a really genuinely good guy, both in, as a teacher, and then he loves running. So basically, running for him is it makes everything accessible, I guess. He takes everybody on and he develops you, and he's encouraging. And I think that's how he's built such a good program at Pojoaque. Is that he's just very nurturing, and he knows the sport inside and out, his passion for it. And then he also really made it a true team effort. So everywhere we went, it was a team effort. Every practice was a team effort. And that's kind of what helped me out a lot. Because like I said, I was, the shy, skinny, geeky kind of kid. Between Coach Lockridge and Ben Ray and different folks on the team, that's how I was able to evolve.
That's awesome. And it's just kind of such a universal story with cross country, If you get on with a good coach and a good team, and it's a great little community.
It really is. It's an amazing thing.
And so, when you went to college, did you have dreams of continuing running? Did you have dreams of trying to walk on or anything, or what did that look like for you?
So when I went to college, I did not have dreams of walking on the team. I was in the party mode, and it was time to go to New Mexico State with all my friends and have a good time. That said, I did keep up running, and I wouldn't say running in the sense of training or anything, but there's some beautiful places to run down there in Cruces. So uh, regularly would run around a mountain or around the campus or around the golf course and places like that, but never anything serious. Uh, just more for the feeling of it.
That's the one thing I've explored a decent amount of northern New Mexico and have run different places there, and obviously now in Albuquerque. But I've never really run down in Las Cruces, but I've seen some beautiful pictures of some of the runners I follow down there. And it really, I guess because I haven't spent a lot of time down there, it just really has opened my eyes to like how beautiful the certain areas are down there for running.
It really is a beautiful area around the Oregon Mountains. There's some really great trails. I probably wouldn't recommend running in middle of July or something, making that the first trip down there. But if you run in the fall or the winter or the spring, it's pretty good temperatures, and it's truly gorgeous. It's different from up here in Albuquerque and northern New Mexico, definitely, but
Right.
it's a different kind of beautiful, and I highly recommend it.
Well, and I guess that was always my first thought was just, oh God, it's going to be hot. Like, why would anybody want to run down there?
Well, in the summer, peak heat in July, that's it's probably definitely a little bit too warm for what we're used to up here.
Right. Albuquerque's still too warm for me sometimes. So,
Me too. Me too.
uh, so how you're obviously getting a little bit older. What did that progression look like from kind of that running in high school to what you're doing now? Because I know you've done several races. You're still looks like you're out there training to kind of be the best version of yourself right now.
So that's actually a really great question. So during college and after college, I would run, and again, nothing serious. And then one of my colleagues at work was always leaving to go train every Tuesday and go run at the track up in Bethesda, Maryland, because I was living in DC at the time. And so she said, "Come check out our program one of these days." And the program is called Montgomery County Roadrunners Experienced Marathon Program, which turns out to be one of the best marathon training programs in the United States, in my opinion. So I went out there, hit the track, really liked the folks. They said come out for a long run. I was not an official member of the program, so I sort of had to bandit it. And I did my first long run with them. Really liked it. Kept on showing up. And next thing you knew, I was pulling 10, 12, 14, 16, then 18 miles. And I had always been the person that said I'm never going to run a marathon. And next thing you knew, I was actually training for the marathon, and I actually ran the marathon and kind of fell in love with that. So yeah, that's it. It went from just real casual running to full blown marathon training. And next thing you knew, I had run Boston's and Chicago and a bunch of other really cool marathons, half marathons, and stuff. So that's kind of how I got into the distance stuff. And then along the way, I realized I got a BQ. So then the next goal was, okay, can I hit a sub 3? And so then I hit a sub 3, and then it was like another one and another one. And yeah, so I kind of got into it from there, and became a pace coach for the program, and just ran with a bunch of really good people, like pretty much my running family out there in the East Coast. And so met a lot of friends, and we're still really good friends today. And yeah, that's kind of my foray into running.
That's awesome. And it's so funny how many people go from like just casual and it just takes a friend or someone they something happens they get that bug like, okay, yeah, I'll do this race or I'll do that. And it's that bug just gets back in there of like, well, can I do this? How well can I do this? Oh, this went well, then the next one might be better.
Exactly. And then
It's
and like I said, they're just really good folks. And so you know how runners are. Like you run hundreds and hundreds of miles with people, and you talk about shoes and weather and good races and bad races and what are you training for. And it actually turned out to be like Saturday mornings at 6 in the morning became my favorite time to wake up, go do a good long run. And even if it was just dreadful humidity or whatever out in the East, it was, no matter what, it was always a good time. So yeah, it's a really cool thing. Running is a great sport.
Yeah, I mean, again, like talking about that community you build as a kid in cross country, in high school and with your high school friends or what become good friends, and then in later in life you kind of can find that same thing with these groups of runners where you're just like all of a sudden your world almost revolves around the same schedule because you're all training for things at the same times or different times, and you're out there just sharing this experience.
Exactly. It's a really
It's
good feeling.
exactly. So what took you out to the East Coast?
So, so I was out of college. I was working for the state of New Mexico, and I had gone to a conference in DC, and met a New Mexican out there, and kind of difficult to be doing a relationship 2,000 miles away. So I decided, you know what, let me move to the East Coast, and got a good job with the federal government, and that's kind of how it all happened.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And did you were getting into back into running, around this time, that can it's a great kind of um, decompressing for work and life and everything. But I know that sometimes training for anything, but especially a marathon, because the amount of hours you're putting in can also sometimes put a strain on relationships.
It can, but when I moved out there, I was not running. I was out there for close to 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at the beginning, I was not running. I mean, I was running, but just casually. I was doing like
Right.
little 5Ks, 10Ks, but not training for it, not doing any spectacular times, none of that stuff. When I moved out there, it was a lot more of the work, 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 work happy hour after the happy hour, and then do it again the next day. So yeah, I probably didn't. For the first half of my time out in DC, I was not running seriously. It wasn't until I one of my colleagues had said go to the track that I had mentioned a little bit earlier.
Right.
I started getting serious into it, and then so yeah, so so the training for marathons, I guess, can be difficult on the on the people that are close to you. But I've also figured out a way to make it, the life balance work out. So
And that's good. That's always the important part. I think that's with anything that you're doing, it's just so it can be time consuming, any pursuits you have. And I just always enjoy talking about it with my guests who have families and are in relationships, because you have to really find that balance between the job, the family, and these other pursuits, and how you manage to um, kind of come to an agreement and make sure you're there for all aspects.
exactly, and it's a challenge sometimes, but it can always work out.
Right. And so you've got kids now, right?
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
That's right. No running for her,
No
or not
running
yet?
for her. She is a volleyball player, so she does her school volleyball, and she does club volleyball. So that kind of keeps her busy, and always at practice and doing different training stuff and tournaments. So it's she has made it very clear to me that she's not a runner. I try to get her out there, but she won't do it. But I'm totally cool with that too, because volleyball is a great sport and she loves it, and I'm all about doing positive, productive stuff, and whatever it is that she loves, as long as it's doing something good for her, that's all that matters to me.
Right. It can be hard because you want them to like the same things you do and share that commonality, but it's always good just, you know, God, when kids are active and in a positive environment, doesn't matter what it is, it's going to be a good outcome for them.
Absolutely, I'm a firm believer that and I think you said the right words. It's a positive environment, and as long as they're shaping themselves into good young adults, and setting their life forward in front of them, I think that's a good thing.
Right, exactly. Those club teams, though, volleyball, baseball, softball, soccer, it's a lot of time commitment for the parents, too, though.
It really is. So I always find myself scheduling on weekends my runs around her tournaments. So
Right.
it's like, oh, how am I going to squeeze in 14 miles, or how am I going to squeeze in whatever I'm planning to do that day?
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to do it early morning, sometimes you do it evening, sometimes you do it at noon. But there's always a way to figure out some kind of mileage.
Right. Yeah, I agree. 5 a.m. is not my favorite time, but sometimes that's all I have time for.
Exactly. I'm the same way.
uh, Especially now with the time change, man. It's so rough.
Oh, the time change is crazy. This morning I woke up and my natural body clock wakes me up about 6:15, and it said 7:20 on my watch, and I was like, "Whoa, how did I wake up so late?" And
Yeah.
then I realized, oh, it's a time change. It's not that my clock is off. It's the actual time change.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew I had to get up at around 7 to have time for my run. But I always like in my head I'm like, okay, it's 7, but it's really like 6. So I need to like pay attention in case my watch isn't switching. Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, I still need to get my run in because I did not get it in this morning.
Oh. Well, at least it's a nice, 60s aren't bad. It'll feel good out there.
It will, and it's not windy like yesterday, so
No, no, not at all. So that's nice. I got mine early though. It was it felt amazing out there actually.
I am jealous.
Yeah, it was good. So, man, so let's talk about the website a little bit. Um, NewMexico.run. How'd you come up with the idea, I guess?
So NewMexico.run came about in early 2020 when COVID, the pandemic first started. I got really sick. I was one of the early COVID cases of a really severe case, and I ended up being hospitalized for several days
Oh wow.
in really, really, really bad shape. I had never been in an ambulance. When urgent care said I probably had about a day left in me to live, I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And like literally,
Wow.
I went from the best shape of my life to crashing to zero. When I left the hospital, I could barely walk. Maybe I couldn't even walk maybe a 16th of a mile without gasping for air and being out of breath. Um, so I couldn't even wash dishes. I couldn't even go pee without spiking my heart rate to like 120, 130. Um, so it forced me to go from amazing, amazing shape to relearning how to do everything, including walking and just building up like walks incrementally. And then at that time, you couldn't travel, so I was kind of just trapped in DC. So the first opportunity I got to come back to New Mexico, it was a long trip. I made it this way. Nobody was really doing anything here either because it's everybody's on lockdown. So I spent all my time up in the Sandia Mountains, building my endurance and just taking in the sights and breathing in the fresh air. And there's actually, I don't know how to describe it, but as you know, there's something magical about being up on our trails, and it just like kind of fills you up with this energy and positivity and inspiration when this either the sunrise or peak peak sunshine at noon, and all the colors are just like popping out, or sunset where all the clouds are just doing that beautiful thing that they do here. And so I'm like, you know what? We have really good trails. We have all this great stuff. We have great food, great coffee. We have all this great stuff, but nobody is ever talking about this. Why is everybody talking about Denver and not Denver, Boulder, Flagstaff? Why are they talking about these places when I am pretty sure that ours is better than what they have? And the, what really sets ours apart is I was out there during the winter, and you could be out there, and I know you can't do that in Flagstaff, and I know you can't do that in Boulder. Uh, and so I'm like, how do we bring uh, runners here to New Mexico to experience this? Because we want runners here. Runners are good quality people. They're considerate. They don't mess up the trails. They're not here to just have a wild raging party. It's like these are the exact kind of folks that we would like to have visit our state. So I'm like, how would we attract people to come here? So uh, realizing that there's no centralized place to have races that show all the New Mexico races, our trails, different things to do. I'm like, But if I just kind of put together a little guide that shows people this is what it's all about, and when you're here, go grab coffee here, go eat here. There's all these great breweries, all this cool stuff that you can enjoy, cultural stuff. And then, on top of it all, we have, I believe, and I know that I'm biased, and you probably think the same way as I do, but I think we have the best people in this state. I think that's the state's biggest asset. It's, we're friendly, hardworking, good, genuine, quality people. And I think that when, if a runner comes from out of state or wherever they come from, if they just experience that, they're going to fall in love with what we have here. You're always greeted with a smile, and just genuine happiness. And so that's how the idea came together. And I build websites as my own business. So I'm like, what, I can put this together, and let me just do New Mexico some really good justice. So I kind of put NewMexico.run together.
That's fantastic. And I think, like, we get so much flack for the crime and all of that stuff. And that's the stuff that's always getting talked about. But the community and the beauty of the state sometimes gets lost in all of that. And so I think what you're doing is fantastic, because you're showing the other side of it, the part that makes people want to be here and want to stay here. And every major city is going to have their crime problems, they're going to have their homeless problems, and there's various ways to address or not address that, but there's the good that's happening here as well.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, and I think you nailed it right there, is Albuquerque and New Mexico in general. Like, people don't, the first thing they hear of it, think of is Breaking Bad, right?
Right.
And then you see carjackings or car theft or whatever. But that's actually not what this place is about. Everything from our local artisans that produce these amazing, amazing products, to people that, the local business owners, the city who has developed all these great trails, and just everybody in between. It's such a good community, and one of my goals is to highlight that local community, and also not only just our business community and our artisans and all that stuff, but it's also our community, like, running medicine, running 505,
Right.
all these great entities that are channeling their resources into building up our youth to make them more productive and better and live their best versions of themselves. And so we just have so much of that, and I really want to bring focus to those kind of things.
And I love that. Like, it really, it sounds very similar to kind of my idea with this podcast. I was listening to all these podcasts about all these amazing runners and current runners and past runners, and growing up hearing stories about these runners from the state that did amazing things, and then running against some amazing runners and running against some amazing Pojoaque runners, and knowing, like, what I grew up knowing about the state and the people around me, and then that story wasn't necessarily getting passed down, that there were kids who didn't know the people that I ran against, much less the people that came before that, the Tony Sandovals, the Chuck Aragons, and have no idea of kind of where we've been in kind of the history of running, I think is important.
Absolutely. And I love what you've been doing with your podcast. In fact, when I first heard it, I was like, man, this is really good.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that like I said, I think we're coming from similar spaces, and I love that you just showcasing what we have here, the places, the experiences, and the people.
And I think that's, New Mexico is it's just different. The land of enchantment really is the right nickname for it, because everything about it is enchanting, and it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. There's always some, like, you just have to look up and you're going to see whether it's a bright blue sky or a red-tailed hawk flying above, or a formation of wild geese flying over the bosque. Like there's just always something really cool and really special about this place.
Absolutely. Or just, I mean, I was on the diversion channel on my run this morning, and just I look up and balloons, just the sky filled with balloons, just people out there, and there's not very many places you can get that.
Right, right. And like, how special is that? Go out in the morning, smell the pinon smoke from the fireplaces, balloons in the sky, and just really, really good. It's a good feeling.
Exactly. It's just it, like you said. I mean, the weather here, the people. It's just it's something you can't get. And then you tack on that fall chili roasting smell, and it's just
Absolutely. Where you walk into one of our restaurants, right, and you smell that red and green chili, and it's like, oh my God, that's amazing.
that's fantastic. So I want to go back a little bit. So you talked about getting COVID really bad. How long did it take you to get from that point where you're getting out of the hospital? You can't, like you said, you can't really walk. You can't even do the dishes without your heart rate spiking. To, I mean, where you are now. If anybody follows you on Strava, like, you know, you're running at pretty good paces. I don't know if you feel like you're all the way back or not, but like, how long did that really take you? Because a lot of people have talked about that, like long COVID, or those, how long it's take to build up that endurance and fitness again.
So that is a really good question and a hard one to answer. I'm kind of hard-headed and kind of stubborn, and so when I realized I could not run, I was like, this is not going to be me. I'm not going to stay on this couch. Like I hate the couch and I hate daytime TV and I don't like this. So some of my friends back east, they're coaches. They have a fantastic coaching firm. It's called Run Farther Faster, and they said, you know what, we're going to put you on a plan. You need to get back out there, and they put me on a run walk plan. And then COVID can affect your heart and all that stuff. And so I knew that I was about to do something dumb. I registered for the virtual Boston, and I said I'm going to build myself up to this marathon. It gives me 2 months to build from 0 to 26 miles. So I had to tell my friends Julie and Lisa, I was like, you know what, you guys got me back into the game, but I'm going to have to take it from here because I don't want you to have any liability on this. And so I did the hard miles in the middle of the summer in 80-90% humidity over there back in the East Coast. Built myself
Wow.
up to be able to hit 26.2. So I ran virtual Boston in August. I did it fully self supported. No water station, no assistance with water, no nothing. And I
Wow.
did that one in about a 3:30. And so even though it wasn't not definitely not my fastest marathon by any imagination, I was super proud of it. And I'm like, I was about 90% back at that time, but then it took a toll on my body. I had to relax. And so that's when I came out to New Mexico for that extended period. And that's when I told you I was out in the Sandia. So that it was really hard for me. I had to stop a lot, and I had to really give myself permission to enjoy the run as opposed to trying to say I finished it with no elapsed time. Uh,
Right.
so elapsed time, just that whole theory went out the window, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just go with what you can do. So it was slowly and surely. I did that, and then we training started back up for the fall Boston training cycle when Boston was in fall, and so I was training with all my good runner friends from back east, and in particular, there's about 5 of us that trained super hard, and we built up, and I just kept going with them, and my buddy Jim would force us to do, you know, tempo miles in the middle of a 20 miler, and doing stuff like that. And so we did a good cycle, and so between the Sandias and that cycle, that's what got me fully back went to Boston. Me and some other another buddy, we ran the first part a little too hard. We were on track for a really good time, and ended up having to salvage the end of the race, and came in at a 3:02, I believe, and so it wasn't the goal that I wanted, but I knew that I was back in the game as of that period. So ever since then, it, so to answer your question, maybe a year and a half before I got back from COVID.
And how do you stay? You haven't really talked about any real injuries, when you got back into it, and maybe you had some, but if how did you stay, I guess, kind of, like you said, you're hard-headed, so I don't want to say motivated, because if you're hard-headed, then I'm sure it's just like, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to get out there. But I mean, there had to have been some hard times. So how did you keep yourself like in the right mind frame to continue to get back to where you wanted to be?
So nobody's actually asked me that question. So let me think about that. So one of the things I did about 8, 9 years ago was I stopped drinking completely. And that's where my running game really started improving. Because I was noticing, like, I was not able to hang on those 20 milers at the end where you're sweating out that IPA,
Right.
and it just wasn't working. So I'm like, you know what, I like running more than I like drinking at this point, so I'm going to focus on the running. But during that period of time, I was getting injured, and I had I had I was actually training for marathons and probably only running about 35 miles a week.
Okay.
That's about, I would make track Tuesday count, I would make tempo Thursday count, and long run Saturday count. And then the rest of the time was in the gym strength training. But all my injuries were always a result of imbalance. And so when the gym I belonged to did a muscle analysis, they're like, you're going to get yourself really hurt because your legs are really weak, your core is really weak, your upper body is super strong, your right leg's a lot stronger than your left leg though. And so I had to actually start really focusing on core training, lower body leg lifting, and then I also, some other friends, some of my running friends also told me to try yoga and all of that good stuff. So between strength training, lower body and core, yoga, I was able to overcome the imbalances, build up the strength that I needed, and then basically from there, my injuries have pretty much stopped. I did have a period of an injury where I had run Chicago Marathon and I ran it pretty well and I felt so good afterwards. But then I jumped right back into training, and that was a dumb mistake. And
Yeah.
I injured myself out of stupidity. But other than that, yeah, I've been really lucky. I've stayed really healthy, and I just I work out 7 days a week. But working out doesn't just mean running. It's yoga. It's strength training. It's it could be just taking a nice hike. But I try to keep myself really well rounded, and then I make sure enough sleep, good nutrition, and those things help out a lot too.
That's a good answer. And I follow you on Instagram, and you always show, well, not always, but you show a lot of your strength training, routine. And I look at it sometimes like, man, I really need to get on board with this too, because it is so important, through all aspects of the training. But as you get older, it's even more important to keeping your body healthy and ready to go in the way you want it to.
No, absolutely. And I'm 49 now, so you know, I I feel like I'm in way better shape than what I was when I was 20. But at the same time, it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of dedication to really try to maintain that level of fitness. But for me, it's at this point in time, it's become a lifestyle. So I like doing it.
Well, I think it is. It's one of those things where you build the habits, and you find the time, because it doesn't always have to take so much time. You can do a little bit a day, and it will have tremendous effect on most people.
Absolutely. And that's the key, right? It's not, you don't need to do a whole lot. It's actually the consistency and just
Right.
getting out there and doing it. And
Yeah.
whatever it is, it doesn't, I mean, my formula is not the right one for everybody. And it's just figuring out what works for each individual and what works on the schedule and what works in life in general and what makes you the happiest.
Right. Absolutely.
And then just going with that one.
Yeah. I myself, I had a nice routine going during COVID, and then once I actually had to start leaving my house again and planning for that, then it was like, oh, uh, but no, you're right. It's everybody's going to be able to find a different whatever routine works for them and fits into their schedule.
Absolutely. And yoga is not for everybody. Strength training is not for everybody. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff. It could be, you know, Orange Theory, or it could be, just so many different things.
Absolutely. So what do you train? Are you training for anything specifically now? You've talked about Boston a couple of times.
So right now, I am training to be in good enough shape to run Boston and to run it in a way that I'd want to. I am actually registered for that race. However, my daughter now has a volleyball tournament right in that window, so um, it's the question: do I need 6 unicorns, or what is it that's my priority? And I think I know what my priority is, and my priority is, dad is job one. I can run Boston whenever I want to run Boston. I don't want to. Not whenever I want to, but
Right.
it's not like if I don't run it this year, I don't run it ever again. So so I'm still on the fence as to what I'm gonna do with this. But if I don't run that, I feel like I'm doing about 40 miles a week, more or less. So I'm comfortable to run that race, or if not, I'll probably just do maybe the Santa Rosa half marathon, which is a week after that, uh, or races like that. Because one of the things I do want to do this year is run a lot of local races. So I feel like that's kind of something I've never done, and so I'd rather just do a full circuit of really good local New Mexico races because we have a lot of great ones, and just maintain a good level of physical shape where I can do a 5K comfortably, a 10K comfortably, a half comfortably, and then if I decide to jump into a marathon, like the base is already there, and it doesn't take much
Right.
to build up to a 20 miler to have the time on feet. So I don't really have a great answer for you as to exactly what I'm training for, but I'm just basically making sure I'm ready to do whatever I feel like doing uh, in the near future.
No, I think that is a great answer though, because I feel like so many of us as runners get so fixated on this is what I'm training for. I'm running this race. Everything is building up to that. And that's can be so good because it's like I have my plan and it's step by step and it takes me to that, but it doesn't always allow for that flexibility. And so if something doesn't work out or there's an injury or there's a life thing that happens that can get in the way, it becomes more than just, oh, I missed this race. It's everything I built towards is now, you know, out the window almost. And so kind of sharing like this flexibility in your thinking, like I can be ready to run it, but I have other things going on and I can do this one. And again, I mean, obviously helps that this would be, number six and not number, the first one or anything. But I think that's an important mindset that we could all kind of benefit from.
Well, and it's something that I've learned from running with a lot of good people, right? Like I've seen people get injured right before their race, but they figure out a way to get their mind around that and figure out, okay, this is not the end all be all of my life. Like whatever race that was, it's not the defining moment that makes or breaks me. So luckily I surround myself with good people like yourself and like different just really good people in our running community, and so it offers you like the mental strength to say, hey, you know what, there is a lot of good stuff out there, and I can enjoy all kinds of great stuff, and it doesn't have to be that one race. It could be, we can move stuff around.
Right. Well, and just I think some people get like again can sometimes get stuck and just realizing like we're both in our 40s and it's running's not done. Like I I feel like I've got plenty of years left to go. I get the sense that you kind of feel the same thing, and it's just it may not be exactly the same as your 20s for sure, but there's other goals and so many other things you can chase that really are just as fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. It's just maintaining a good level of physical fitness, all a well-rounded physical fitness to just be able to do whatever. And if somebody says, "Let's go do this," all right, let's go do it.
Right. um, you talked about, being in DC for so long and then you came back kind of in that COVID time for some time. Now you're living back in New Mexico now.
Correct.
And what brought you back? I mean, I know you're really highlighting the state and you're talking about, in the website and all that. What brought you back?
So at a certain so Washington, to start out with, Washington D.C. is a great city, and I would never trade in the experience of having lived outside of the state, because I feel like you learn a new culture, you learn a whole new way of doing things. Met a bunch of wonderful New Mexicans who are now some of my very best friends in the world, because there's a strong contingency of New Mexicans out there. So I never really missed the New Mexico culture out there, because I was just surrounded with all this good New Mexico stuff. And so, but what brought me back is, at a certain point in time, there New Mexico isn't able to be replaced. It's it actually is a magical, special place, and I've been to all over the United States, to every major city, every state capital, with the exception of Anchorage, and and so I, it's just it holds a special place in my heart, and at a certain, family is here, everything is here, and so I've been there, done that, and it was just time. It was like, I need mountains. Mountains are what make me happy. Clean, fresh air, blue skies, sunshine. Like sunsets, sunrises. I need that kind of stuff, and so I had actually planned to move back earlier, but with COVID and the
Right.
whole world turning upside down, that wasn't really a possibility. So it took a little longer than I wanted, but here I am.
Well, that's awesome, and obviously we're glad to have you. And like I said, I mean, just can't speak enough of the way that you're showcasing this state, because it's just so important.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a great place that it's impossible not to showcase it.
I agree.
And and it's everything. Not and we've talked about a lot of the nature. We've talked a lot about the people, and we've talked a lot about, let's just say, we even mentioned Chile and stuff,
Right.
but it's just so much more than that. It's the history. It's like, how is the how did everything come together to form a truly tricultural place where everybody lives in pretty decent harmony, and it's just a special place.
I agree, and there's you talk like you said, you talked about the people a little bit, and you really do. You can find some amazing people here who and learn about the cultures of people that have been here for generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then and tying all this back to running, I think our running community here is just an amazing community. Luckily, I was able to find Duke's Track Club when I got back here, and started running with the team, and just meeting all these really cool people from, Jesse and Arlene down to,
Right.
Sean and Brett and all these wonderful people that you get to do some miles with. It's just really a breath of fresh air.
No, they're a great group and some great people, and that's how I was actually about to ask you about that. I know that you've run with them again from Instagram and that kind of stuff, um, but you had talked about running with the group out in DC, and then I was going to ask you about that, finding that group here.
So the group out in DC, Montgomery County Roadrunners, that's I've done thousands and thousands of miles with them, and I'm a member of the race team, and doing all kinds of cool stuff with the team out there. So I was actually really worried when I moved back this way, because I love being part of a great running community. And so I had seen Dukes on Instagram, and they maintain a really great Instagram page, and it's always the kind of vibe that I like: positive,
Right.
community focused, just have a good time with the mileage. So I was like, you know what? I think this is the home for me when I get back home to New Mexico. So I reached out, and the first run that I did with them was from Michael Thomas on a Friday morning, and it was like, this is a really good group of people. So tried to make as many runs as I can, and usually it's the Michael Thomas run, or it might be a Saturday trail run. Um, but but it was really refreshing to know that I could come back home to New Mexico and find such a great running family here, and then meeting a lot of good friends off of the team, and also just really learning about the local community. Like,
Right.
one of the things that struck me the most is how Arlene and Jesse have really focused on making good stuff happen in the community, whether it's like helping out the kids through the youth team, or filling up pantries, food pantries for people that aren't able to afford food. It's like, how do we make sure that the community is fed? How do we make sure that the people are taken care of in a good, meaningful way? And so I feel really blessed and lucky to have been able to find this here in New Mexico. And you'd never guess that this team is is like, so many great runners. Like, I'm probably one of the slowest ones there, and but the way everybody just is such good people. Like it's just amazing to see such fast, good runners that do so much good in the community.
I agree. It's the work that they do, like you said, within the community is fantastic. They do the school drives at the beginning of every year, which is just, being an educator, that's always a big one for me. And they're just always involved with so many aspects within the community, and it's fantastic to see. And it's just like you said, it's just so awesome to all these different. We have so many different groups here, and being able to find the right group that's going to fit you. And so I'm glad you found the group that fits you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was actually, like I said, I'm just grateful that that I was able to be able to connect with them and now be a part of the team. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was probably one of the biggest worries that I had, but now but here I am.
How was that transition coming back to altitude, though?
so I so according to the watch, to the oximeter thing, it takes me a few days to acclimate from the altitude out east to over here. But in reality, it probably took me several months to really feel comfortable. It's hasn't been until about 2023 where I feel super comfortable just being able to say I can go tackle a long run, no provisions, no nothing, and feel very comfortable with it. So the short answer is, according to data, it's a few days. According to how my body tells me, I perform and monitoring all my Strava statistics and all that stuff. It was a few months.
Yeah. I love I really do love the watch data, and I loved going through and just kind of comparing, and how did this race feel, according to the data last year as opposed to this year, and that kind of stuff. But man, it just can't quite match that real feel of what you're really going through sometimes. Like I've had some of the hardest runs I've ever had where I'm just struggling and my watch is like, great job.
I'm the same way, and so the watch would say, "Oh yeah, great!" Like exactly like what you said, great
Yeah.
run. Your fitness score is improved, and
Right.
all of this good stuff. But I'm like, I felt really tired after that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Or
now I
man.
can honestly say I can go out there and bang out a good fast run or a good long run
Right.
or just trail miles or whatever the mileage is, and it feels really good and it feels comfortable.
Right. Then that's great. And that's great. And I think, yeah, always, keep an eye on data. It's not, it's always, it's good, but you got to listen to your body.
Gotta listen to your body, and I think that's actually you hit it right there, right? Like no matter what you do, whether it's running or when you're strength training or what you eat or whatever, it's like listen to your body, and if your body says you need an apple, eat an apple. If it
Right.
says you probably need extra sleep over miles, you might need
Right.
that sleep. Or sometimes it says like I'll go out for a run. Case in point, a couple of weeks ago, I thought I'm gonna go hit 10 miles, and I think it ended up being like 16. Uh, but the body just said keep going a little bit,
Right.
and uh, and so it's just really knowing what you listening to what it says and going with it.
Absolutely. Kind of on that note, you talked earlier about, giving up alcohol because you felt like it wasn't helping your running and you cared more about the running. And so now I've seen you, and we've talked a little bit about this, some of those new non-alcoholic beers that have they give you some of that flavor, but you're not getting as, necessarily those negative impacts of it. And so I know you've, had some of those. What do you feel about those?
So one thing I love beer. Two things. So if there's two things that I miss about drinking, it's the taste of good beer and really good wine. So luckily on the beer front, Athletic Brewing started making some really good non-alcoholics, and a lot of other folks have followed suit. Everything, in fact, what I'm drinking right now as we're talking is Lagunitas hoppy sparkling water.
Oh,
And so it's basically like a sparkling water, but it's infused with hops, and it just gives you that good flavor without any of the negative side effects. And but I feel like it's given me not only good beverage options, but I feel like it also aids recovery. Because you're putting a little bit of carbohydrates back in your body,
right.
and something about that just it kind of hits you a little bit more quickly on the recovery. So I'll often come back after a run and crack open a non-alcoholic, and it's pretty fulfilling. I keep a full stash all the time, so I have IPAs and I have light beers and I have pale ales and I have Guinness just came out with a non-alcoholic that tastes exactly like a regular Guinness,
Really?
and it foams up and everything just like you pop it and the nitro goes and
Wow.
so yeah, I really embrace the non-alcoholic beer stuff.
I will say they had it at the Turkey Trot this last year, some athletic brewing, and so I grabbed one, and I was really shocked actually. It was, I mean, I'd heard good things from you, from some other people. Uh, it was not. I don't. I hate saying not bad. It was good.
Which one did you have?
I think it was the IPA.
Was it,
Um,
was it a blue can?
Maybe no. It might have been blonde because I think it was a yellow can.
Okay, if it was a yellow, it was their upside down pale ale.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to hook you up with some of their IPAs.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a huge IPA.
Okay.
Not my favorite. I like kind of the more the reds into the darkers, but I'll drink them. But yeah, I've been wanting to explore a little bit more of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend them. And then the other cool thing is you can take it to the trail and you're not violating any laws because you can actually crack open a beer after a hard run in the forest on Forest Service property, and you're not doing anything wrong.
That's a good point. So, this has been a great conversation. Do you have anything else kind of upcoming for the website or anything?
I do. In fact, I've sort of it doesn't look too different from when it launched, but the whole underpinning of it has changed. I've upgraded the entire site. It's so if you were to jump on it today, it's even though it looks very similar to what it was last week, it's a whole brand new underpinning of it. It's a little bit more simple, easier to navigate. And instead of taking a we approach, I've changed it to an I. Like it's going to be more like not really a blog, but it's going to be more written from my tone instead of the original Web3 digital platform that I had envisioned. And so the other thing that has happened is I have minted pretty much every photo that's on there of New Mexico that I have taken. And what that means is they are now non-fungible tokens, which is part of the blockchain, uh, also known as Web3. So it's going to be New Mexico's first Web3 page, I believe. All the assets on there will be on the blockchain,
Wow.
and so uh, a lot of photos have come down from what it was like 2 weeks ago. They will be back up as they've all now that they've been minted and they're officially in a different kind of technology than what a regular website has.
That is interesting. So I don't know exactly what that means.
So basically, Web 1 was the beginning of the internet where people had, things were housed on individual computers, right? Like your Apple
Right.
TV or your IBM PCXT or whatever. And so there wasn't much that you could do with that. Like, you could communicate like basic communications, all that stuff. Web 2 became the clouds, the cloud. So it's like Facebook, all your data is housed through Meta's cloud, or it's on Twitter's cloud, or it's on, whoever's cloud, Amazon.
Right.
But they're central repositories of large computing centers that have servers and everything, whether the security from not getting hacked to whatever, you're depending on Apple or whoever to say this is how we're protecting it. But it allows a lot more interactive communication. It allows us to run the internet the way we know it. But it also, for example, if they say, oh, we're now going to charge you a subscription fee to have a blue check mark on Twitter or on
Right.
Instagram, that they can do that. They own your data. They own all that. The blockchain takes away all of that. It's basically harnessing computing power from around the world, and these two moments in time have to connect with the exact same encryption code for the data to match up, and then it's forever recorded on something called the blockchain. And
Wow.
so rather than servers, it's decentralized computers around the world, all operating uh, together, but it's all based on encryption algorithms and stuff like that. And so it's a much more secure way of transacting. It's going to be the future. Meta is putting a lot of big money into the metaverse. You've got all this new artificial intelligence technology coming out from Microsoft, from Amazon, and all these different places. So it's going to be all of this new forward-facing technology that kind of revolutionizes the way we experience the internet, to the way we do transactions, to the way we do pretty much everything. Pretty much everything that we do. How the current internet changed our lives when the iPhone came out, and Google and all that good stuff. It's going to be
Right.
that kind of revolution.
That is really cool. That is, wow. Thank you for explaining all of that.
Well, I don't know if I explained it well. It's a really complicated thing, but it's basically I'm trying to get NewMexico.run to be ready for that future.
Well, you explained it well enough that at least kind of have like I have a better understanding than just hearing, Web3. Like and I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So, again, thank you. This has been a fun conversation. Um, and hearing what you've done, what you're planning on. The website is fantastic. Anybody who hasn't checked it out, again, it'll be in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
No, I think that's it. I just really appreciate, you know, one, I appreciate you having me on here, and then two, I appreciate what you're doing for running here in New Mexico. Like I said, when I first stumbled upon your podcast, I was like, this is a fantastic thing. It's exactly what the state needed. And so, what I'm most excited about is people like you and Dukes and everybody in this running community here in Albuquerque and throughout New Mexico, because we have great running communities throughout the state. Um, and I really appreciate what everybody's doing to just kind of all of us pulling together and coming up with a way to really highlight the sport in this wonderful state. And so a big thank you to you for the piece that you're doing. And in addition to your podcast, what you do with the Matadors, really improving kids' lives through running on a grassroots level. I think these are fantastic things.
I'd once again like to thank my guest for their time and thank you for tuning in. If you have the opportunity, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, or just help spread the word. Music was provided by Philip Friedman. You can follow him on SoundCloud at DJ Teach. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at RunningNM. Feel free to drop me a line or shoot me an email at runningnewmexico@gmail.com if you have any questions or know of someone who should be interviewed. In the meantime, keep running, New Mexico.